All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I like to give all the honor, the praise, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, Bahashem, Rachakwadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of great Millstone who rule well. Peace and salutations to the elect scattered abroad. I just the brother Barbazal here with a lesson, and Lord willing this edifying. All right. So today I just wanted to get into a lesson in the spirit. Pretty much going into, well, not into the situation, but, of course you got the situation with the bug out, saying that, I am God, claiming to be God, right? And, this ain't going to be a video on the specific individual, right? But more of a video going into kind of a cautionary tale, right? Because, if you went, you could end up like this, right? Or like that dude, like that guy, right? If you're not, rooted, right? If you're not constantly purging out, specific demons, all right? If you, insincere, all right? The Lord could bug you the hell out, man. Just like that guy was. All right, so constantly while we're in this thing, we have to, of course, constantly examine ourselves, pray, and ultimately look for the Lord, to deliver us from those demons, man. Because when you fall out the truth, or you notice, when these guys fall out the truth, they turn out way worse, than they were even in the world, Because not only do, really you actually, know better than, to go back to your old ways, but you're going to be even worse. A lot of these guys is calling on different names and, just doing a whole bunch of madness. All right. And that puts fear in us to keep on the straight gate, the straight path, because, we're seeing what can happen, if we, don't continue on the right path toward Yahweh Shai. All right. So this is the book of Psalms 51:10. It says, "Create in me a clean heart, O Yahweh, and renew a right spirit within me." You see? Verse 11, it says, "Cast me not away from thy presence, and take not thy Holy Spirit from me." And the Lord can do that. The Lord can take, the spirits off these guys. The Lord literally can just use a guy to wake up a member of the elect. All right, and that was his only lot. All right. And then, just to end up back in the world, receive judgment, because a lot of these guys who fall out, they get judged. They get judged as well. All right. You had a lot of guys be put in, the Lord put judgment on them, right? Accidents, death, whatever the case may be. All right. So let's read verse 11. It says, "Cast me not away from thy presence, and take not thy Holy Spirit from me." You see? So let's get another precept. This is 2 Corinthians 13:5, and it says, "Examine yourselves whether ye be in the faith." So we have to constantly examine ourselves. All right. Constantly, whatever we do, as soon as, whatever demons we have, we have to constantly work on purging out them demons, through fasting, through prayer, right? Doing what we can to have a closer relationship to Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, because, eventually that demon will go out, and what'll happen? You bug the hell out, right? You get kicked out the camp, you go back to the world, all right, whatever the case may be. It says, prove your own selves. All right, prove our own selves. We got to work out our salvation through fear and trembling, man. All right, and not to be offended, over something you shouldn't be offended of. It might be rebuke, that you actually needed. All right, people find ways to be offended with brothers, to be offended with the apostles. All right, which is a way to go about that. All right. But you got guys who hold grudges and, keep things bottled up and, just eventually start bugging the hell out, man. All right? And people just getting offended over things they really shouldn't be offended over, So let's read it again. 2 Corinthians 13:5. Examine yourselves, whether ye be in the faith. Prove your own selves. Know ye not your own selves, how that Yahushua Hamashiach is in you, except ye be reprobates. Then verse 6. But I trust that ye shall know that we are not reprobate. Yeah. So don't be a reprobate. All right. And that's one of the scary things. You out here, teaching, teaching, the precepts, teaching the correct breakdowns. But, you got people who don't apply the precepts to themselves, who don't apply, what they preach to themselves, practicing what they preach. All right. And that's why it's important to be rooted. All right. Because, you'll even have individuals who, brothers who you may thought was brothers, they could take the C hill, So we always have to, be mindful. We always have to have have that faith and constantly meditate on, what's bound to come, right? Which all hell is about to break loose, man. All right. And we can't get caught up with that, the hour of temptation, taking the C hill. All right. So let's get 1 Corinthians 15:58. It says, therefore, my beloved brethren, be ye steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, for as much as ye know that your labor is not in vain in the Lord. Or we have to constantly keep ourselves, busy, within the truth, because ultimately, this truth is first, right? We put the truth first, and anything we got to take care of in the world, that comes second. Okay, put the ministry first. All right, Yahweh Shem Yahushua first. The brothers. All right, and then all the other stuff, has to kind of revolve around that. Your job situation. Your relationship with your woman. Whatever the case may be. Your family. All right, whatever the case may be, this truth has to be first. So you have to constantly, do the work, constantly, be in the spirit. All right. Because when you get lackadaisical, lukewarm, all right, the Lord could easily take away the spirit off you. You could end up like that guy, just saying that he's God. All right. With a black and mild in his mouth. All right. Looking drugged the hell out, man. That can happen. Don't take heed to them, seducing spirits. And that's what happened to that guy. He took heed to a seducing spirit. All right. Thinking he had it, thinking he had the truth, following, those new covenant guys. And look how it turned out, man. All right. And, when you, the longer that you in this truth, you see, every time these guys fall out, that's what usually happens. All right, they get bugged the hell out. They scar for a certain period of time, and then eventually, you don't see them again. They make less and less videos. All right, because the Lord took the spirit off them. First is one disagreement in the doctrine, and then all of a sudden, everything that they've learned to the apostles and elders of great Millstone was wrong. All right, that's the type of spirit that these guys are in, man. So this is Hebrews 10:31. It says, it is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living power, to fall into the hands of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua. And we fear that, because we know that, if we take our hand off the plow, all right, we allow ourselves to, be seduced, by these different spirits, by these different doctrines, what could happen, So yeah, that's pretty much the point. All right. Lord willing, it was edifying. So with that, I like to give all the honor, the praise, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Baruch HaKodesh. Shalom.